watching News Central Television. It's time for news beyond the continent. I'm your host, Judith Atibi. And we start with a statement stirring both surprise and controversy as U.S. President Donald Trump has suggested that Canada becoming the 53rd state of the United States would be, in his words, a wonderful marriage. The comment came during highly anticipated talks at the White House with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney amid rising tensions over tariffs and speculation about annexation. Responding firmly, Prime Minister Carney dismissed the idea outright, declaring that Canada is not for sale and wouldn't be for sale ever. The exchange underscores ongoing strain in U.S.-Canada relations despite efforts to resolve trade disputes and strengthen bilateral ties.
I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together, and we have done.
And joining us now to discuss this further is Syrian Edward Ekpo. He's the Director General, Institute of Law, Research and Development of the United Nations, and he joins us live virtually. Mr. Syrian Edward Ekpo, many thanks for doing this with us. I mean, let's just get started, shall we? I mean, given the rising tensions over trade tariffs between the U.S. and Canada, how does the Institute interpret President Trump's annexation remark within the broader context of international economic cohesion?
Yeah, well, and a lot of people understanding the personality of President Donald Trump, certain remarks before this time around, a lot of people do take it serious and placing it in the realm of jokes. But as we keep going, we understand the authenticity of most of his remarks. Personally, in my view, I have seen the Canada and United States over the years and the relationship that has spanned decades. The relationship between the United States and Canada has been characterized by close economic, security and political ties, often described as unique and complex partnership. They share a lot of bonds, and they are like cousins. And I do believe if the proposal of President Donald Trump was made in a well-managed manner, like having some level of extensive consultation with the citizens of Canada, that could probably have led to a plebiscite or something like the Canadian citizens deciding whether they want to be part of the United States. Because if you look at it quite well, sometimes you really find it difficult to differentiate the United States and Canada in terms of cultural values and political values, and they have been too closely tied and operating like cousins.
Right.
Valuing each on the interest of the other.
Okay.
Over decades. So I think if the approach was that I want to consult you, Canada, do you think we should make it the United States and Canada a multi-layer country? Maybe the citizens of Canada would have said, okay, let's vote for that. But I think the approach came in form of without consultation, and then the people of Canada, I do think they took it as an insult.
All right.
And that could have led to the breakdown or in their communication. Yes.
Now, does international law recognize economic pressure such as tariffs as a legitimate tool in negotiations about sovereignty or even territorial alignment?
Come again?
I was asking about, alignment, territorial alignment, given the tactics that President Donald Trump is using. Does international law recognize economic pressure such as tariffs as a legitimate tool in negotiations about sovereignty or territorial alignment? Because, as you rightfully said, these two states are almost like cousins. Up north, they have bilateral ties that goes far as decades. They are political allies. Why strong arm them with their sovereignty and territorial alignment with tariff wars?
Yeah, within the framework of international law, every country and the rights of the sovereignty rights of every country has to be respected. The international law recognizes the alignment in terms of economic partnership, trade, and all that. And you cannot forcefully annex a country, another country to the other country. But a country that have maintained details of cultural understanding and harmony, I do not see anything wrong if they decide and say that we want to become one country and make it liar, instead of maintaining a diplomatic relations. Let us make ourselves one country. United States in the first place is a continent that turned to a particular country. Remember, the United States Constitution was different territorial entities coming together to form a particular country. So that's not it's not alien to international law, to the framework of international law. Even the United Nations Charter is not alien to it at all. But the approach shouldn't be like Russia going to annex part of Ukraine. No, the approach should be in a very constructive, harmonious way. There should be a sensitive consultation between the government of this country and not between the government to the citizens. So at the end of it, the citizens that determine by casting a vote whether they are to join or align, go beyond diplomatic relations to form or become part of the other country or becoming one of one, whether they're changing their name or their identity. The citizen determines that, not by forceful means or by threat or by coercion. Once that's happened, once that approach emerged, it violates the principle of international law and the cardinal principle of the United Nations Charter, which mandate countries to respect the territorial integrity of other countries.
At this point,
and the sovereignty right of the other countries.
At this point, I have to ask about the role that the Institute and the United Nations, your institute, for example, institutes like yours and the United Nations play in ensuring that economic disputes do not escalate into threats against national sovereignty.
All right, now we are working on a proposal, a draft framework proposal for recommendation to the UN, United Nations, and even to the United States government and other countries. What we think should be for the betterment of the citizenry of the world, because recently or lately we have found that there has been a lot of chaotic dismantling of diplomatic ties since the beginning of this year. And some of these things are very good proposals. Even some of the proposals made by President Donald Trump are good, but the approach, we think the approach are being miscommunicated or not well understood by the other parties, or the approach of which they will release rather turn into confrontational. So we are working on a proposal for presentation to see how such proposal could be adopted in order to assist in our quota of contribution to assist in maintaining and sustaining a harmonious trade relationship between countries. especially the United States and the European countries and Canada, which the foreground of human rights, universal human rights values. And it is regrettable in these countries that always stand together to protect human rights, stand against dictatorship around the world, stand against oppression, are not working together. It automatically affects the world and creates series of problems and that ought to have been addressed. So when they concentrate on battling with trade war, instead of their usual alignments and unity for the protection of universal values of human rights and peace around the world, it becomes a problem that affects the entire world.
All right. Mr. Cyril, I must say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Cyril, Edward Ikpo just giving us a bit of insight following comments and the meeting of Canadian Prime Minister and, of course, the U.S. President Donald Trump. Let's head off to Europe, shall we? But first, let's go on a short break. We'll be back. Stay with us. And you're welcome back. Let's head on beyond the continent, this time to Europe, where Germany has a new chancellor as conservative leader. Friedrich Merz secured victory in the second round parliamentary vote following a surprise setback earlier in the day. Friedrich Merz was officially elected chancellor after German lawmakers cast their votes in a dramatic second round ballot on Tuesday. Merz secured 325 votes in favor with 289 against, enough to clinch an absolute majority and seal his leadership. Earlier in the day, he suffered a shock defeat in the first round of voting, marking a historic first in post-war Germany. The uninspected outcome triggered hours of tense negotiations among political parties before the Bundestag reconvened. The second round win ends the uncertainty and sets the stage for Merz to begin forming his government and outlining his policy direction.
Mitgliederzahl 613, abgegebene Stimmzettel 618, ungültige Stimmzettel 3. Mit Ja haben gestimmt 325 Abgeordnete. Mit Nein haben gestimmt 289 und Enthaltung 1. Es ist noch Zeit zum Applaudieren gleich. Ich beende gerade die Feststellung. Der Abgeordnete Friedrich Merz hat die erforderliche Mehrheit von mindestens 316 Stimmen erreicht. Er ist gemäß Artikel 63 Absatz 2 des Grundgesetzes zum Bundeskanzler der Bundesrepublik Deutschland gewählt worden.
The European Union is taking a major step toward energy independence, announcing a plan to completely end gas imports from Russia by 2027. The EU has officially rolled out its long-anticipated strategy to phase out all remaining natural gas imports from Russia within the next 3 years. The announcement made on Tuesday marks a significant escalation in the bloc's efforts to reduce its reliance on Russian fossil fuels. Speaking during the unveiling, EU Energy Commissioner Dan Jørgensen said that the move sends a strong message to Moscow that Europe will no longer allow Russia to weaponize energy supplies. The plan presents both logistical and economic challenges, but EU officials remain firm in their resolve to shift toward alternative energy sources and strengthen the region's energy security. Normal operations have resumed at Domodedovo Airport in Moscow following a temporary suspension caused by a wave of Ukrainian drone attacks overnight. The disruption affected several airports across Russia just days ahead of the highly anticipated Victory Day parade in Moscow. Authorities say dozens of flights were grounded as a precaution after drones targeted areas deep behind the front lines. The timing is critical, with 29 foreign leaders expected to attend this year's May 9th celebrations, marking 80 years since the Soviet victory over Nazi Germany. President Vladimir Putin is expected to use the occasion to reinforce support for Russia's ongoing military campaign in Ukraine, even as concerns mount over security at what officials claim will be the grandest Victory Day parade yet. And off to the Vatican, as cardinals from around the world gathered at the Vatican on Tuesday for their 12th pre-conclave meeting ahead of the election of a new pope. The closed-door session, known as the General Congregation, offered the church leaders an opportunity to reflect on the challenges awaiting the successor to Pope Francis. With representatives from 70 countries across 5 continents, this is the most diverse and international conclave in the church's history. On Wednesday, the cardinals will enter the 16th chapel to begin the voting process. Around 80% of the cardinal electors were appointed by Pope Francis, a reform-minded leader from Argentina who served for 12 years. However, Vatican observers caution against assuming his successor will follow in his progressive footsteps, as many conservative voices within the church are calling for a return to traditional doctrine. And we head off to the Middle East. Yes, indeed, we head to the Middle East, where Israel's foreign minister has sparked, or rather, Israel's finance minister has sparked fresh international concern with controversial remarks about the future of Gaza and the West Bank. Speaking at a press conference in the Israeli settlement of Ofra, located in the occupied West Bank, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich, declared that a full Israeli victory over Hamas would mean the total destruction of the Gaza Strip. The far-right minister said civilians in Gaza would then be relocated to a designated humanitarian zone in the south, adding that from there many would begin leaving for third countries. His comments come amid ongoing fighting and a deepening humanitarian crisis in the enclave. Mosrich also reiterated his long-standing position on the West Bank, expressing hope that the territory which Israel has occupied since 1967 will be annexed before the current government's term ends. International observers have widely condemned such proposals, warning they threaten regional stability and the prospects for a two-state solution.
עזה חרבה לחלוטין, אגב פשוט מכיוון שהיא כולה תשתית טרור אחת גדולה מעל ומתחת לפני הקרקע, פשוט חרבה לחלוטין. אמרתי, אזרחיה מרוכזים מציר מורד ודרומה במרחב הומניטרי שאין בו חמאס ואין בו טרור, ואגב משם הם מתחילים לצאת במספרים גדולים מאוד למדינות שלישיות. זה אירוע שישנה את המציאות, את ההיסטוריה של מדינת ישראל עשרות שנים קדימה. אנחנו חייבים, מה שאנחנו עושים בקדנציה הזאת זה פשוט לנרמל את ההתיישבות. אני חושב שלא הערכנו כמה זה יצליח. מתחילת השנה, אחרי 4 חודשים. בשקט, בלי רעש, כמו שאמרה קודם שרה, האתר של שלום עכשיו עושה לנו פרסומות, לא מעבר לזה, זה הפך לדבר נורמלי, טבעי.
The United Nations is accusing Israel of weaponizing humanitarian aid in Gaza amid growing desperation for food and water in the war-ravaged territory. At a press briefing in Geneva on Tuesday, UN Humanitarian Agency spokesperson, and that's Jens Lake, he condemned Israel's proposal to shut down the current aid distribution system run by the UN and over 200 NGOs. He revealed that Israel has instead suggested routing supplies through its own hubs under military oversight. Now, he said the UN has firmly rejected the plan, warning that it violates core humanitarian principles of neutrality, impartiality, and independent aid delivery. He stressed that aid must be provided strictly based on need, not under military control or political influence. And off to Asia, where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has declared that water flowing from Indian territory across its borders will be stopped, a move widely seen as escalating tensions with neighboring Pakistan. The statement made Tuesday comes just days after New Delhi suspended its participation in the 65-year-old Indus Waters Treaty, a critical agreement that regulates water sharing between the two nations. Although Modi did not directly name Pakistan, the timing follows a deadly attack on Indian tourists in Kashmir, which India blames on Pakistan-backed militants, an accusation Islamabad denies. In response to India's move, Pakistan has warned that any interference with its water sources could be interpreted as an act of war. Since April 24th, both sides have repeatedly engaged in nightly gunfire along the line of control in the disputed Kashmir region, fueling concerns over a potential escalation.
वैसे आजकल तो मीडिया में पानी को लेकर काफी चर्चा चल रही है। पहले भारत के हक का पानी भी बाहर जा रहा था, अब भारत का पानी भारत के हक में बहेगा, भारत के हक में रुकेगा और भारत के ही काम आएगा।
And that's all we can take from Beyond the Continent. It's back onto the continent here. But do remember, if you're on the continent or beyond the continent, do remember to send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on the screen. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on all social media platforms. You can always watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422. That's if you are on the continent, or also on GoTV channel 23 for those in Nigeria. Find us on Star Times channel 274 for those outside on Beyond the Continent. Do find us on Apple TV. And if you're global, stream us live on YouTube, because we are global. Thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Good night.